For the first time in a long time, she didn't rebuild her armor immediately. She didn't pull herself back together as if someone was watching. She simply breathed, releasing a weight she'd kept buried under discipline and silence for far too long. The sound of that breath, shaky, uneven, real, echoed softly in the break room. It was small, almost invisible, but Daniel felt the shift like a change in the air pressure. Like a storm finally deciding it was allowed to pass. He didn't move, didn't speak. He knew how rare this moment was. People like her, people built out of duty and responsibility and expectations they never asked for, didn't let themselves unravel. Not in front of strangers. Not in front of colleagues. Not even in front of friends. They held themselves together with muscle memory and sheer will, which made this moment feel even more fragile. Maya's shoulders slowly rose and fell, the exhaustion in her posture softening into something rawer. She pressed a hand gently against her abdomen, then her chest, as if grounding herself. As if reminding her lungs they were allowed to expand. Allowed to not carry the weight of the world for just a minute. Her eyelids fluttered shut. Not fully, just enough to take in the air without having to pretend. She stayed that way for several seconds, breathing like someone who'd forgotten what gentle felt like. Daniel watched her silently, not intruding, not rescuing, simply witnessing. He remembered moments like this in his own life. Times where he tried to hold everything in until the pressure pushed cracks into the foundation of who he thought he was supposed to be. Times he pressed his palm to a doorframe, or a countertop, or the steering wheel of his old truck, just to keep himself standing. Times he smiled in front of people so his daughter wouldn't see his knees shake. He'd survived those moments alone. She didn't have to. Slowly, Maya opened her eyes again. They were glassy, the sheen of unshed emotion still clinging to her lashes. But something had changed. The tension wasn't strangling her anymore. Her gaze no longer looked like a soldier waiting for orders, it looked like a woman remembering she was allowed to feel. She let out another breath, this one softer. I don't know the last time I did that, she murmured. Breathe, he asked. No, she shook her head gently. Feel. Daniel's chest tightened. Not with pity, never pity, but with empathy so deep it felt like recognition. She lowered herself into the chair, the metal legs scraping faintly across the tiles. She sat like she didn't trust the chair to hold her, like she didn't trust anything to hold her. But she didn't pull her shoulders back or wipe her face dry or straighten her uniform. She didn't hide. Daniel took that as permission to sit too. Not across from her, not in a formal way, but beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. Enough distance that she didn't feel crowded. Enough closeness that she didn't feel alone. The baby slept soundly, his tiny fist pressed against his cheek, unaware of the emotional battlefield unfolding around him. Maya stared at her hands for a long moment. Small scars ran across her knuckles. Calluses. A life lived in service and training. But her fingers trembled slightly, just barely, just enough for Daniel to see. People always think strength is about being unbreakable, she said finally. He tilted his head. And you? She swallowed. I used to think that too. Especially growing up the way I did. A faint, almost bitter laugh escaped her. Being raised in the shadow of a man like my father, you don't get room to be anything less than perfect. Daniel stayed still, though his mind sparked. She had never spoken of her family before. Never hinted at anything beyond military background. Something in her tone told him this wasn't casual information, this was a wound she had learned to live with. Maya continued, voice quieter now. If I failed at anything, training, discipline, posture, even how I handled emotions, it felt like a reflection of him. Like my mistakes were insults to his reputation. She exhaled shakily. So I learned not to make mistakes. Or, not to let anyone see them. So you built armor, Daniel said gently. She nodded. Layers. Years of it. And now? She bit her lip, but not nervously. Thoughtfully. Now it feels like the armor's too heavy. Like I'm dragging myself through days because I don't know how to take it off anymore. You just did, Daniel said softly. She blinked at him. What? You set the armor down. Just now. Even if it was only for 30 seconds. That's not weakness. That's courage. Maya stared at him, and for a heartbeat Daniel wondered if he had overstepped. But then she whispered, it didn't feel like courage. It felt like drowning. He nodded. Feels like that at first. Every time. She leaned back in the chair, gaze drifting upward to the slow-moving ceiling fan. Do you ever get used to it? Being open? No, he answered honestly. But you get better at not hiding from yourself. She closed her eyes again, not to shut him out, but to let his words settle. The silence stretched between them, warm and unhurried. After a while, she spoke again. When I deployed last year, I thought I was ready. Her voice shifted, lower, rougher. But being responsible for people's lives isn't something you ever really get used to. You act like you're trained. You act like it doesn't shake you. But it does. Daniel listened, every muscle in his face soft. Then I found out I was pregnant. She swallowed hard. And suddenly I wasn't responsible for a unit. I was responsible for a life that didn't exist yet. And that terrifies you in a different way. Daniel's breath adjusted. He didn't interrupt. He didn't ask questions. He let her keep going. I came back home, she continued, but everything was different. I was different. She stared at her sleeping baby. And people didn't know what to do with me. Some were kind. Some judged. Some said nothing at all, which somehow hurt more. Daniel nodded slowly. Silence can feel like disappointment. Her eyes flashed with recognition. Yes. Exactly. Or abandonment. Her throat tightened. Yes. Or like you're invisible. She looked at him sharply. Yes. He offered a small, understanding smile. I've lived that silence too. Her eyes softened again, and she whispered, then you know. He nodded. I know. Maya rubbed her thumb lightly against the edge of the baby carrier. I didn't expect tonight to happen. Her laugh was faint. I just came here to warm a bottle. I didn't expect to break. You didn't break, Daniel said firmly. You let yourself feel something. And that's allowed? It's human. Maya let his words settle into her, like warmth spreading slowly through cold limbs. She leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees, hands clasped loosely between them. Why is it easier to talk to you than anyone else? I don't even know you well. Maybe that's why, he said quietly. Sometimes strangers carry our truths better than the people we think should understand. She looked at him, almost startled by how accurately he'd read her. You really mean that? I really do. The clock on the wall ticked softly. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Somewhere outside the room, the school's old heating system clanked to life, but none of it drowned out the shift happening between them, subtle but unmistakable, like two broken edges fitting together in a way neither expected. Finally, Maya spoke again. I'm scared. Daniel's voice was gentle. Of what? Of being weak, she whispered. Of needing someone. Of letting someone help me. He nodded, slow and sure. Needing people isn't weakness. Pretending you don't is. She sucked in a soft breath. And help, he continued, his tone warm but steady. Help isn't something people earn. It's something people deserve. Her eyes glistened. Do I deserve it? Yes. The answer was immediate. Firm. Certain. Something in her broke open, not violently, not painfully, but like a door she'd kept locked finally giving way to light. She released a breath that trembled from the deepest part of her chest. And for the first time, she didn't look like a soldier trying to stand steady. She looked like a person trying to heal. A tiny, fragile smile tugged at the corner of her lips, the kind that wasn't quite happiness but wasn't hopelessness either. Something in between. Something real. Daniel didn't touch her, didn't move closer, didn't push anything. He simply stayed present, steady, unshakable, and that was enough, because tonight, she didn't need rescuing, she just needed someone who understood how heavy armor could get, and he did, and she knew it. And in that quiet room, with a sleeping baby and two tired hearts, something shifted, something real, something human, something beginning. If you want, I can also write 5 cinematic photo prompts for this chapter.